Lieutenant Commander Maya Chen stared out the viewport of the GCS Intrepid, watching the glimmering stars of the Orion Arm with a mixture of frustration and resolve. The massive Confederation carrier bustled with activity as various species prepared for deployment, but the human contingent remained in their quarters, assigned to inventory management and supply chain logistics. "Another day, another insult," muttered Sergeant Louis Reyes, sliding into the seat beside her in the observation deck. "Did you hear? They're sending the Tellurians to Proxima Centauri." "That should have been our deployment." Chen nodded silently. Earth had fought 3 wars in the Proxima system before joining the Confederation. No one knew those planets better than human forces. The High Command believes our fragile physiology makes us unsuitable for frontline combat, Chen said, repeating the official explanation with thinly veiled contempt. "Apparently, having only 2 arms and lacking natural armor plating makes us inferior warriors." Their conversation was interrupted by the ship's alert system. Red lights pulsed through the corridor as Colonel Jackson's voice echoed through the comm system. "All human personnel report to Briefing Room 7 immediately." 20 minutes later, Chen stood at attention alongside 200 other human officers as Admiral Skatar, a towering Voltar with crystalline skin, addressed them with obvious reluctance. The Hive Imperium launched a surprise attack on the Krex deployment vessels. The Admiral's translator device conveyed in flat tones, 70% of our primary combat forces have been lost. This presents a tactical challenge. Colonel Jackson, the only human with a seat on the War Council, stepped forward. "What the Admiral means is that they need cannon fodder while they rebuild their precious Krex battalions." The Admiral's crystalline features remained impassive. "Your assessment, while crudely phrased, is not entirely inaccurate, Colonel. The Vega Prime mining colony must be defended for at least 15 standard cycles while reinforcements are grown." "Grown?" Lieutenant Diaz whispered behind Chen. "The Krex reproduce through accelerated cloning," Chen whispered back. "But even with their technology, it takes time." The Admiral continued, "Your species will be deployed to Vega Prime with orders to hold the position for as long as possible. The High Command anticipates the position will be overrun within 3 days, but even this delay would be tactically significant." The room remained silent as the implications sank in. They were being sent on a suicide mission. Colonel Jackson waited until the Admiral had left before addressing his troops. "Listen up. The Confederation doesn't think we'll last 3 days. I intend to prove them wrong." Chen felt a surge of determination. "Permission to speak freely, sir." "Granted, Commander." "They've never seen humans fight." "Not really. They think because we lack the physical advantages of other species, we're weak." Chen stood straighter. "They don't understand what we are." Jackson smiled grimly. "No, they don't. The Krex evolved as apex predators with no natural enemies. The Voltar developed in environments so hostile they needed silicon-based biology to survive. But humans," he looked around the room, "we evolved on a planet where everything was trying to kill us, including each other. We've been perfecting warfare since we learned to pick up rocks." As the briefing concluded, Chen coordinated with her platoon leaders, already formulating adaptations to standard Confederation tactics. The aliens had given them obsolete equipment, expecting them to follow conventional doctrine and die bravely but ineffectively. They were about to learn their first lesson about humans. Never underestimate a species that turns survival into an art form. The first Hive ships appeared in Vega Prime's atmosphere exactly as predicted. Massive organic-looking vessels that pulsated with an alien rhythm. Chen watched from her hastily established command post as the enemy landing crafts descended toward the mining colony's central plaza. "They're following standard invasion protocol," Lieutenant Santos observed, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. "Just like the simulations." Chen nodded, "which means they expect standard resistance." She activated her comlink. "All units, execute Operation Thunderbolt." "I repeat, execute Operation Thunderbolt." Throughout the colony, Human soldiers abandoned their defensive positions, seemingly retreating in disarray. The Hive forces, sensing weakness, accelerated their advance, directly into the humans' trap. The first wave of Hive warriors, 8-foot-tall insectoid creatures with chitinous armor, charged forward, only to trigger the mines that the humans had disguised as decorative stones. The explosions shattered their formation, but the Hive quickly adapted, advancing more cautiously. Phase 2, Chen ordered calmly. Colonel Jackson's voice crackled over the comm. Engaging Phase 2. Give him hell, Commander. From hidden positions in the colony's ventilation systems, sewers, and maintenance tunnels, human snipers opened fire with modified Confederation rifles. Each shot targeted the small gap in the Hive warrior's armor at the junction between thorax and abdomen, a vulnerability the Confederation's tactical database had deemed too difficult to exploit in combat conditions. The Hive commanders, unused to precision targeting, responded by densely massing their forces, playing directly into the human strategy. They think numbers are protection, Chen said, watching the enemy movements. They've never faced an enemy who fights like we do. Phase 3. Throughout the colony, hidden speakers activated, broadcasting a sound that Confederation psychologists had determined would be most disruptive to Hive neural patterns, the amplified sound of their own queens in distress. The effect was immediate. The Hive forces became disoriented, some even turning on each other in confusion. "I don't understand," said the Tellurian observer who had been assigned to document the human defense. "Your species lacks the strength to engage the Hive in direct combat. Why aren't you following established protocols?" Chen didn't look away from her display. "Because they'd slaughter us if we did. We're not fighting fair. We're fighting to win." For 3 days, the human forces employed tactics that the Confederation had never considered, setting fires to disrupt the Hive's thermal sensors, using captured Hive weapons against their former owners, luring enemy forces into ambushes, and conducting night raids on their landing zones. On the 4th day, already longer than their expected survival time, Chen received the transmission from Confederation High Command. "The evacuation ships have departed safely," the metallic voice of Admiral Skatar announced. "Your forces were expected to be overrun by now. Explain your continued resistance." Chen allowed herself a tight smile. "We're just getting started, Admiral. Request permission to go on the offensive." The silence that followed spoke volumes about the Confederation's astonishment. "The Krex Battlemasters are still 12 days from deployment readiness," the Admiral finally responded. "Your orders remain. Hold position until relieved." "Understood," Chen replied, already planning her next unorthodox tactic. "We'll be here when they arrive." As she ended the transmission, Chen observed the Hive's latest assault formation. They were learning, adapting to human unpredictability. But so were her forces. "They think they're fighting soldiers," she told her officers as they gathered for planning. "They don't realize they're fighting the descendants of the most creative predators Earth ever produced." Dr. Zivrax adjusted his ocular enhancements as he studied the human tissue samples. The xenobiologist had requested transfer to the Vega Prime forward base after hearing reports of the inexplicable human success against the Hive forces. What he discovered left him both fascinated and disturbed. Record observation log, day 17 of human combat analysis. He dictated to his assistant, a hovering spherical drone. Subject tissue exhibits remarkable regenerative properties. Unlike Krex warriors who cannot regrow damaged tissue or Voltar, who require specialized mineral baths, human soldiers continue fighting with injuries that would incapacitate other species. He moved to another workstation where environmental simulations ran continuously. Most puzzling is their environmental adaptability. Earth exhibits temperature variations that would kill most sentient species. Humans evolved to function in everything from Arctic conditions to equatorial deserts, often within the same genetic line. The base alert system pinged, indicating another Hive assault had begun. Rather than seeking shelter, Dr. Zivrax moved to the observation deck. Through reinforced windows, He watched as Lieutenant Commander Chen's forces once again repelled attackers that outnumbered them 5-1. Their combat effectiveness defies conventional xenobiology, he noted. The answer must lie in their evolutionary history. Later that cycle, Dr. Zivrax presented his preliminary findings to the Confederation Science Council via quantum transmission. Humans are the only known sentient species to evolve as persistence hunters, he explained to the assembled scientists. They pursued prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. This required not just physical endurance but problem-solving intelligence under stress. A Tellurian counselor interrupted. Many species evolved as hunters, Doctor. The Kreks were apex predators on their homeworld. Yes, Zivrax countered, but Kreks were ambush hunters with overwhelming physical advantages. Humans were comparatively weak, lacking natural weapons. They compensated through tool use, pack coordination, and most importantly, adaptability. He displayed a holographic timeline of human warfare spanning thousands of years. Most crucially, they spent millennia fighting each other, while the Voltar achieved species unification before developing advanced weapons, and the Kreks established rigid honor codes preventing extinction-level conflict. Humans continued to innovate new ways to kill each other until their very recent past. The council chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. "You're suggesting," said the Voltar representative slowly, "that their history of intraspecies warfare is an advantage." Precisely, Dr. Zivrax confirmed. The Hive cannot predict human tactics because humans themselves never established fixed combat doctrines. Their military history is an endless cycle of innovation and counter-innovation. He displayed footage of human soldiers fighting on despite injuries that his analysis indicated should be incapacitating. They possess a neurochemical response they call adrenaline that temporarily overrides pain. Combined with cultural conditioning that values sacrifice, this creates warriors who continue fighting past their biological limits. As the council debated his findings, Dr. Zivrax received an urgent message from Colonel Jackson requesting his presence at a field hospital. There, he witnessed a human medic performing emergency surgery on a wounded Kreks warrior using techniques developed for human anatomy, but adapted on the spot. "You see, Doctor," Jackson said quietly, "this is what makes us dangerous. We're not the strongest, fastest, or most technologically advanced, but we're the most adaptable species this galaxy has ever seen, because we had to be. Evolution wasn't kind to us. It made us kind of, well, unkillable." Zivrax watched the improvised surgery succeed where conventional Kreks medical protocols had failed. "I believe," he said slowly, "that the Confederation has severely underestimated your species' potential." The Nightmare Shriekers arrived on the 32nd day of the siege. Colonel Jackson watched from his command bunker as the enormous Hive vessels descended through Vega Prime's atmosphere. Unlike the combat carriers, these ships bore the distinctive crimson markings that the Confederation intelligence had identified as belonging to the Hive's psychological warfare division. They'd deployed their fear weapons, reported Lieutenant Santos, her voice steady despite the implications. All other Confederation forces have standing orders to retreat when facing nightmare units. Jackson's expression remained impassive. "Good thing we never got that memo. Alert Commander Chen to prepare the forward battalions for sensory assault." The first wave hit an hour later. The Shriekers hovered above the battlefield, emitting pulses that manipulated the fear centers of sentient brains. Confederation reports indicated that Voltar warriors turned to stone in terror, while Tellurians suffered mass psychosis. Even the mighty Kreks were known to break formation and flee. In the forward bunker, Shen felt the first pulses washing over her position. The sensation began as a creeping dread that rapidly accelerated into full-blown terror. Around her, her soldiers tensed, some dropping to their knees. Chen's own heart raced, and cold sweat beaded on her forehead. Then something unexpected happened. "Ma'am," called Sergeant Rice, his voice strained but determined, requesting permission to advance on those ugly floating bastards. Chen looked around and saw dozens of her troops rising to their feet, faces contorted with fear, but hands steady on their weapons. The terror was real, but instead of paralyzing them, it was transforming into something else, a fierce, primal rage. The fear effect, reported Dr. Zivrax over the comm system, is triggering their fight-or-flight response. But unlike other species, humans can convert the flight impulse into fight. The xenobiologist sounded both shocked and impressed. They're not immune to fear, they're weaponizing it. Chen felt the adrenaline surging through her system, the ancient chemical cocktail that had helped her ancestors face predators on the African savanna. All units, she commanded, advance on the Shriekers. Use their position against them. They're broadcasting their location with every pulse. What followed would later be described in Confederation records as the first reversal. Human forces, faces contorted in what the Hive mistook for terror, charged directly at the nightmare Shriekers. The Hive commanders, so certain of their psychological weapons' effectiveness, had positioned the valuable units with minimal protection. 3 hours later, Jackson received Chen's report: 7 Shriekers destroyed, the remainder retreating to orbit. The Hive responded by deploying their reality-warping quantum distortion fields, technology designed to confuse sensory inputs and create hallucinatory experiences that had broken even the disciplined Krex units. The human forces responded by developing a buddy system, each soldier responsible for verifying their partner's perceptions, creating a redundancy that the Hive had never encountered. Admiral Vexthor's classified report to the Hive Imperium was intercepted by Confederation intelligence the following week. The humans represent an unprecedented threat. Their neurological response to fear stimuli is fundamentally different from all previously encountered species. Where others are paralyzed, humans become more aggressive. Most disturbing, they adapt to our psychic attacks with increasing speed. Recommendation: avoid deployment of psychological warfare units against human forces. They do not break. They become more dangerous. The Confederation War Council reviewed the report in stunned silence before making an unprecedented decision. Human forces would be reassigned from defensive positions to offensive operations, specifically targeting Hive psychological warfare units. As Chen told her troops when they received their new orders, "They tried to use our minds against us. Instead, they just discovered our greatest weapon." Commander Chen surveyed her newly assembled strike force with measured confidence. 6 months into the war, the Confederation had granted her unprecedented authority. Command of an elite mixed-species unit targeting a critical Hive manufacturing world. The briefing room on the GCS Indomitable contained warriors from every major Confederation species, each selected for exceptional combat records. "Your mission," explained Admiral Qatar, "is to disable the gravitic shield generators on Nexus 7. This will allow our fleet to target the manufacturing facilities producing the Hive's newest weapon systems." Chen nodded, studying the holographic display of their target. "The approach will take us through the Helios Corridor, a region with 1.8 times standard gravity and atmospheric toxins." The massive Krex battalion leader, Commander Frokhtar, shifted uncomfortably. "My warriors require exoskeletal support in high-gravity environments. Their natural armor becomes burdensome." Similar concerns emerged from the other alien commanders. The Tellurians' psychic abilities diminished under gravitational stress, while the Voltar's crystalline physiology became brittle. "That's why human forces will take point through the corridor," Chen stated. "Our physiology, while lacking your specialized adaptations, functions adequately across a wider range of conditions." Dr. Zivrax, who had requested assignment to the mission as a field researcher, added, "Humans evolved on a planet with varying gravitational pulls due to their mountainous terrain. Their respiratory systems adapted to filter various toxins. What appears as physiological inferiority is actually remarkable adaptability." The insertion went smoothly until their transport was detected and forced down 20 kilometers from the target. As the mixed strike force navigated the high-gravity terrain, the non-human forces quickly began to falter. "Cannot Maintain pace, gasped the Voltar lieutenant, his crystalline form developing stress fractures. Chen called a halt in a sheltered ravine. We'll rest here, Doctor. Assessment. Zivrax moved from one alien warrior to another, measuring vital signs. The Kreks are experiencing respiratory distress. The Voltar are developing structural integrity issues. The Tellurians' neural functions are impaired by the gravitational field. And the humans? Asked Vroktar, the Kreks commander. Elevated heart rates, increased perspiration, mild muscle fatigue. All within acceptable parameters, Zivrax replied. Their inferior musculature actually provides an advantage here. Less mass to move against the increased gravity. When a hive patrol discovered their position an hour later, the ensuing firefight revealed another startling contrast. A plasma burst caught Chen in the shoulder, searing through flesh. The wound would have incapacitated a Kreks warrior or shattered a Voltar's crystalline form. Chen grimaced, applied a battlefield sealant, and continued firing. You are damaged, observed Vroktar with confusion. Why do you not withdraw from combat? Flesh wounds don't stop us, Chen replied through gritted teeth. Humans can compartmentalize pain. The final approach to the shield generator revealed the starkest difference of all. When Vroktar was struck by hive fire, the massive Kreks warrior collapsed, his exoskeletal support system damaged beyond field repair. Without hesitation, Chen hoisted the alien commander, nearly twice her size, onto her shoulders. What are you doing? Vroktar demanded. I am combat ineffective. Leave me as honor demands. That's not how humans operate, Chen grunted, adjusting to the weight. We leave no one behind. Dr. Zivrax recorded the scene with his ocular implants, the human commander carrying the Kreks battalion leader through high gravity and toxic atmosphere, still commanding her forces via subvocal comlink. The image would later become iconic throughout Confederation space, the supposedly fragile human demonstrating strength that had nothing to do with physical prowess and everything to do with something the other species were only beginning to understand. The uniquely human refusal to accept defeat, even from biology itself. The Mimic Legion made its debut at the Battle of Proxima Centauri with devastating effectiveness. General Jackson, watching the tactical display from the command center, felt a chill as he observed the new hive warriors moving with unmistakably human-like tactics. They've been studying us, he murmured as reports of casualties flooded in. The new hive units employed cover and concealment, used flanking maneuvers, and even appeared to communicate with hand signals similar to those used by human special forces. Commander Chen's voice crackled over the comm system from the front lines. Sir, these aren't standard hive warriors. They're adapting in real time to our countermeasures. Request immediate tactical reassessment. Dr. Zivrax approached, his multifaceted eyes reflecting the holographic battle display. They've engineered a new warrior caste using genetic material collected from human casualties. The hive has never done this before. They typically consider other species genetically inferior. Jackson's expression hardened. So they're copying our biology. Not precisely. The xenobiologist clarified. They've incorporated specific human traits, adaptability, endurance, pain tolerance, into their existing warrior template. But there's something they couldn't copy. What's that? Jackson asked. Your cultural evolution. Dr. Zivrax displayed a comparative analysis. The mimics have human-like physical and neurological traits, but they still operate within the hive's collective consciousness. They lack the psychological complexity that makes humans unpredictable. Jackson stared at the display, an idea forming. Doctor, how much do you know about humanity's warfare history? I've studied it extensively. Your species has a uniquely diverse tactical tradition. Jackson nodded slowly. Contact Admiral Skatar. I need authorization for Protocol Black Flag. Hours later, Chen received the encrypted orders and gathered her senior officers. The general has authorized cultural weapons deployment. We're implementing historical military doctrines that the Hive collective consciousness won't be able to process simultaneously. Lieutenant Santos looked concerned. Which doctrines, specifically? All of them, Chen replied grimly. Each battalion will employ tactics from different human military traditions, simultaneously. First platoon will use ancient Roman legion formations. Second will employ Mongol cavalry tactics adapted for mechanized units. Third will implement Vietnam-era guerrilla warfare doctrines. Fourth will use modern urban combat protocols. The contradictions will confuse their hive mind, explained the intelligence officer. They've designed the mimics to think like humans, but not to understand why humans fight in so many different ways. The strategy produced immediate results. The Mimic Legion, attempting to process and counter multiple contradictory human combat doctrines simultaneously, began to exhibit confusion. Some units withdrew to defensive positions while others charged forward. Coordination between mimic units deteriorated rapidly. Chen led the counterattack personally, implementing psychological warfare techniques drawn from Earth's most notorious conflicts. Her forces broadcast contradictory surrender demands on Hive communication frequencies, employed false flag operations to turn mimic units against each other, and spread disinformation about fictional vulnerabilities in Hive defensive systems. By the third day, the supposedly unstoppable Mimic Legion was in full retreat, their collective consciousness overwhelmed by tactical contradictions it couldn't reconcile. In her after-action report, Chen wrote, "The Hive believed they could defeat us by becoming us. They failed to understand that humanity's greatest military asset isn't our biology. It's our history. Thousands of years of conflict taught us not just how to fight, but how to think about fighting in ways no single consciousness can comprehend. They tried to copy our bodies without understanding our minds." When the report reached Confederation High Command, Admiral Skitar ordered all restrictions on human tactical deployments lifted. For the first time, the galaxy began to truly understand what made humans the ultimate warriors. The Confederation's Supreme Council chamber fell silent as the vote concluded. 17 species had voted in favor of deploying the stellar collapser against the Hive homeworld. Only one delegation, the humans, had voted against. Ambassador Sarah Okonkwo stood, her ceremonial diplomatic robes contrasting sharply with her military bearing. Before joining the diplomatic corps, she had served 20 years in Earth's unified defense forces. "Esteemed representatives," she began, her voice resonating through the vast chamber, "I understand the desperation that drives this vote. The Hive Imperium has shown no interest in negotiation and continues to expand despite our tactical victories." The Krex ambassador interrupted, mandibles clicking in agitation. "Your species was the most recent to join the Confederation. You cannot comprehend the centuries of aggression we have endured from the Hive." With respect, Okonkwo continued calmly, "It is precisely our recent membership that gives us perspective. Humanity fought 3 world wars before achieving unification. We understand existential conflict better than most." She activated the central holographic display, showing historical footage from Earth's military archives. "Before deploying our equivalent of the stellar collapser, we explored an alternative strategy developed by our military historians. We call it targeted decapitation. Precision strikes against leadership combined with acceptable surrender terms." The council erupted in objections. The Voltar representatives' crystalline form vibrated with indignation. The Hive cannot be reasoned with. Their entire evolutionary psychology is based on absolute conquest or extinction. Perhaps, Ambassador Okonkwo acknowledged, but consider this. The Hive has already demonstrated unprecedented adaptability by creating the Mimic Legion. They're evolving. We believe they can comprehend concepts beyond binary victory or defeat. After hours of heated debate, the Council reached a compromise. The human approach would be attempted before resorting to the stellar collapser. General Jackson and Commander Chen were tasked with leading what many considered a suicide mission. infiltrating the Hive Imperium's central command structure, while Ambassador Okonkwo prepared diplomatic terms. 3 weeks later, Chen's strike team breached the outer defenses of the Hive's central nexus. The mission had cost them dearly. Only Chen, Jackson, and 7 other human operatives remained from the original 30. "We've reached the inner sanctum," Chen reported over the encrypted channel to Confederation Command. Proceeding with Phase 2. Instead of detonating the tactical antimatter charges they had brought to destroy the Nexus, Jackson activated a specialized communication device developed by human xenolinguists. This is General Adebayo Jackson, representing the Galactic Confederation. He broadcast on all Hive frequencies. "We come with terms for honorable cessation of hostilities." The response was immediate. Hive warriors surrounded their position, weapons ready but not firing. From the central chamber emerged a massive figure unlike any Hive form previously encountered. The Queen Strategist, biological repository of the Hive's collective military intelligence. Through the xenolinguistic translator, her response came: extinction or victory. These are the only paths. There is a third option, Chen replied, stepping forward. Coexistence with autonomy. Your empire retains its cultural identity and core worlds. Expansion ceases. Prisoners' exchange begins immediately. The Queen Strategist's compound eyes studied the humans with alien intensity. Why offer terms when destruction is within your capability? Our intelligence indicates your stellar collapser weapon is prepared. Jackson's response would later be included in every Confederation military academy's curriculum. Because the ultimate demonstration of strength isn't the willingness to destroy your enemy. It's the confidence to offer mercy when victory is assured. For 17 tense minutes, the Queen Strategist communicated silently with the collective consciousness. Finally, she responded, "Your species introduces concepts we have not encountered in 60,000 cycles of conquest. We will consider your third path." 1 standard year after the Treaty of Proxima Centauri was signed, the Confederation Grand Assembly gathered to commemorate what many now call the impossible peace. Representatives from all member species attended, including, for the first time, a delegation from the Hive Imperium, now officially recognized as an autonomous protectorate. Dr. Zivrak stepped onto the presentation platform, his comprehensive analysis finally complete after years of studying human combat effectiveness. The xenobiologist had become something of a celebrity across Confederation space since his preliminary findings began circulating among military academies. "Distinguished representatives," he began, activating the holographic display. "Today I present the final publication of my research. Why humans are the galaxy's ultimate warriors. My conclusion may surprise those who still view humanity through the lens of physical capability alone." The display showed comparative biological scans of various species alongside combat performance metrics. The human's true strength is not any single attribute, but rather their unique combination of traits that no other species possesses in concert. Adaptability born from evolving on a death world with extreme environmental variations. Psychological resilience developed through thousands of years of intraspecies warfare, and perhaps most significantly, their capacity to transform disadvantages into strategic advantages. The assembly murmured as Zivrax continued. "Consider, the Kreks evolved as apex predators with natural armor and overwhelming strength, yet they became victims of their own evolutionary success, developing rigid combat doctrines because they rarely faced meaningful resistance. The Voltar's silicon-based biology grants them incredible durability, yet makes them inflexible in changing battlefield conditions." He displayed footage from various battles, highlighting human innovations. Humans, by contrast, evolved as persistence hunters without significant natural weapons. This forced them to develop tool use, cooperation, and creative problem-solving. Their comparatively fragile physiology required them to develop medicine that could repair significant damage, which they readily adapted to treat other species during the war. On the upper level of the assembly hall, Newly promoted General Chen sat beside Supreme Commander Jackson, who had become the first human appointed to lead all Confederation forces. "He makes us sound almost reasonable," Chen whispered with a smile. Jackson chuckled. "Let's not disillusion them. They still haven't seen how humans celebrate victory." As Dr. Zivrax concluded his presentation, the assembly erupted in applause. The Chancellor announced the establishment of a new military academy on Earth, where all species would send their elite to train under human instructors. Later that evening, at the formal reception, Chen stood on a balcony overlooking the capital city when Jackson joined her. "Lieutenant General Chen," he said, using her new rank with deliberate formality. "The Chancellor requested your presence, something about a speech." Chen straightened her dress uniform. "I'm not good at speeches." "Just tell them the truth," Jackson advised. "Tell them what you told those young recruits last week." Minutes later, Chen stood before the gathered dignitaries, including the Hive delegation. "Many ask why humans succeeded where stronger, faster species failed," she began. "The answer is simple. We never evolved to be the perfect warrior for one environment or against one enemy. We evolved to be good enough in all environments against all enemies. We don't win because we're the strongest. We win because we refuse to accept that we can't." As applause filled the chamber, an aide rushed to the Supreme Commander, bearing an urgent communication. Jackson read it quickly, his expression growing serious. "An unidentified fleet has appeared at the edge of charted space," he informed the Chancellor quietly. "Technology unlike anything we've encountered." As alarm spread through the assembly, Chen noted something unexpected. The gathered representatives weren't looking to the physically imposing Krex or the technologically advanced Voltar for leadership. They were looking at the humans. The galaxy had found its defenders.